There is something profoundly transformative about silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from simply not speaking, but the deeper, sacred silence that touches the soul and reveals the nature of our inner world. In our fast-paced, overstimulated lives, silence has become rare. Every moment is filled with noise, literal and figurative. We are constantly surrounded by the hum of technology, the chatter of social media, the rush of deadlines, the ping of notifications. In such an environment, we begin to lose touch with ourselves. The voices of the world begin to overpower our own inner voice, and slowly, without even realizing it, we forget what it feels like to be still. This realization struck me deeply when I decided to take on the challenge of spending 24 hours in complete silence. I wasn't seeking a dramatic transformation. I didn't expect the heavens to open up and reveal ancient wisdom. All I wanted was to see what would happen if I simply stopped speaking, stopped listening to external noise, and turned inward. What I found, however, was more than I could have imagined. The silence became a mirror. It showed me not only who I was, but also who I was pretending to be. It revealed my thoughts, my fears, my dreams, and the many layers of noise I had mistaken for my identity. In the early hours of silence, my mind was restless. Thoughts surged like waves. Random memories, worries, plans for the future, regrets from the past. I realized how little control I had over the constant chatter of my own thoughts. This internal noise was no less distracting than the external world. But as the hours passed, something remarkable began to happen. The storm started to settle. Like muddy water left undisturbed, my mind began to clear. In that clarity, I discovered a new space, calm, open, and incredibly alive. Buddha once said, "Silence is better than 1,000 hollow words." In that moment of stillness, I understood what he meant. When we are silent, we begin to hear the language of the soul. It does not speak in words but in sensations, intuition, and subtle realizations. In our usual lives, we are so busy explaining ourselves to others, defending our choices, reacting to situations, that we rarely sit with our own truth. Silence gives us that sacred space to just be, not to perform, not to impress, just to exist fully and peacefully. During those 24 hours, I realized how much we rely on noise to distract ourselves from discomfort. Every time an uncomfortable emotion arises, boredom, sadness, anxiety, we reach for our phones, we turn on the TV, we scroll mindlessly through content. But in silence, there's nowhere to hide. When a mind is no longer able to latch onto distractions, it begins to face what it has long avoided. At first, this feels difficult. The emotions rise like waves, but eventually they pass. And in their passing, they leave behind something precious: resilience, understanding, and freedom. True wisdom doesn't come from accumulating knowledge. It comes from understanding ourselves. And understanding ourselves requires silence. In silence, we begin to observe the patterns of our thoughts. We see how often we dwell in the past or worry about the future. We notice how rarely we are truly present. This self-observation is at the heart of Buddhist practice. Buddha taught that by observing the mind with mindfulness and equanimity, we can free ourselves from suffering. Silence becomes the container in which mindfulness can flourish. Without external distractions, we become more aware of our breath, our body, our feelings, and our mental habits. There was a moment during my silent retreat when I simply sat and watched the sunlight filtering through the leaves outside my window. I had nothing to do, nowhere to be, just the present moment. In that simplicity, I felt a joy so pure it brought tears to my eyes. It was not the joy of achievement or excitement. It was the quiet joy of being alive and fully present. The Buddha called this sukha, a deep inner happiness that arises when the mind is free from craving and restlessness. It is in silence that we taste this joy, however briefly, and realize that peace is not something we need to seek elsewhere. It is already within us. Many great spiritual teachers, monks, and seekers throughout history have sought solitude and silence as a path to awakening. The Buddha himself spent long periods in silence and meditation under the Bodhi tree before attaining enlightenment. He taught his disciples to cultivate noble silence, which is not merely the absence of speech, but a profound state of inner peace and clarity. Noble silence helps us see reality as it is, without the filters of our ego, our judgments, or our fears. It allows wisdom to arise naturally, like a lotus blooming in still water. As my silent hours deepened, I noticed changes in the way I perceived the world. The colors seemed more vivid. Sounds, when they came, were sharper and more meaningful. A bird's call, a breeze through the trees, everything felt sacred. It was as if the world had slowed down, or perhaps I had finally caught up with it. In silence, I could see the impermanence of everything, the way each moment arises and passes away. This insight, central to Buddhist philosophy, teaches us that clinging to anything, people, possessions, even our own identity, inevitably leads to suffering. But when we see things clearly with a calm and silent mind, we begin to let go. And in letting go, we find freedom. One of the greatest gifts of silence is clarity. In the absence of external input, we can truly hear our own heart. Decisions become clearer. Priorities realign. We begin to distinguish between what is essential and what is noise. This clarity is a key to success. Not just material success, but success in living a meaningful life. Many people chase goals that are not truly theirs, influenced by society, peer pressure, or fear. Silence helps us return to our authentic self. It gives us the courage to pursue what truly matters and the wisdom to let go of what doesn't. In Buddhist tradition, the practice of vipassana meditation involves silent observation of the body and mind. It is through this practice that many have experienced profound transformation. By silently observing their thoughts, sensations, and reactions without judgment, they begin to unravel the root causes of suffering. Silence becomes a tool for insight, and insight becomes the path to liberation. During my 24 hours of silence, I touched the edge of this experience. I saw how much of my suffering came not from external events, but from my own interpretations and reactions. I realized that I had the power to choose peace, simply by changing the way I related to my thoughts. After the silent day ended, I noticed that I no longer felt the urgency to speak just for the sake of filling space. I listened more deeply. I responded more mindfully. Even simple conversations felt more meaningful. The practice of silence had shifted something within me. It wasn't just about being quiet for a day. It was about learning to bring that inner quiet into everyday life. To speak less, but with more intention. To listen not just with ears, but with presence. To act not from impulse, but from awareness. The benefits of silence are not limited to individuals. Imagine a world where people paused before reacting, took time to reflect, and connected with their inner wisdom before making decisions. Relationships would deepen, conflicts would reduce, creativity would flourish. In Buddhism, there is a teaching called right speech, to speak only what is true, kind, and helpful. Silence helps us develop this discipline. When we practice silence, we become more aware of the impact of our words, and we begin to use them more wisely. In modern times, success is often measured by how busy we are, how loud our achievements sound, how many followers or likes we get. But true success, according to Buddhist philosophy, is measured by inner peace, compassion, and freedom from suffering. Silence teaches us that we don't need to prove ourselves through noise. Our worth is not dependent on external validation. It is discovered in the quiet moments when we come home to ourselves. My experience of 24 hours in silence was just the beginning. It opened a door to a deeper way of living. It reminded me that wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers, and we can only hear it when we are quiet enough to listen. Since that day, I have made silence a part of my daily routine. Even a few minutes of mindful silence in the morning sets the tone for the whole day. It grounds me. It reminds me of who I am beneath the layers of roles, responsibilities, and noise. It connects me to something greater than myself, a sense of unity, peace, and sacredness. To those who feel lost, overwhelmed, or disconnected, I would say, try silence. Not as a punishment, but as a gift. Turn off the screens. Step away from the noise. Sit with yourself. Breathe. Listen. At first, it may feel strange or uncomfortable, but if you stay with it, you will begin to hear the quiet wisdom of your own soul. You will find clarity where there was confusion. You will find peace where there was anxiety. You will find yourself. In the end, the path to true wisdom and success is not found in doing more, speaking more, or acquiring more. It is found in being still, in letting go, and in listening deeply. As the Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. And silence is the gateway to that inner peace.